Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Redmen TV and your latest edition of Transfer Insight. My name is Dan Club. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Parth from the Chelsea Spot podcast for this one. How you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, mate, I'm all good. Massively appreciate you joining me. Yeah, obviously, Chelsea, as mentioned, so we are here to talk about Rio Ngumoha. Now, I hope I pronounced this surname right, first and foremost, because it sounds far more straightforward than it's spelled, let's put it that way. It is spelled like the most impossible surname in the history of all time, but it seems relatively straightforward to say. Yeah, Paul, let's dive into it then. Chelsea reportedly furious at allowing such a prodigious, precocious, however you want to put it, talent to leave the football club. I guess from sort of a fan's perspective as well, are you similarly annoyed and do you understand the rationale and the reasons as to why? Because Chelsea have used this policy in recent times of signing young players and hoping they go on to become something very special. But I guess making these signings of tens of millions of pounds, often from South America, obviously in recent times, that's kind of in a way blocked the pathway for some people that are already there in a weird sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think that frustration is definitely there in general amongst the club and the fan base. That we have lost what is supposedly going to be a very good big talent, and he has been sort of the key player in that age group for the last few years. He's been talked about across the country for a while, so everyone in the sort of academy setup knew about Rio. And I think you're right. I think the frustration is definitely there from the people who follow Cobham a bit and who work around the academy. Is that I completely get the policy of the club of trying to invest in these youngsters and think about the long term future. And I think that's a really nice way of going about things. But when you're failing to recognise what is in house, what you already have in someone like Rio, and this has happened with multiple other players, and you're even seeing it in the first team and under 21s and under 18s. It can be really frustrating, and you get it from Rio's perspective, and maybe it will affect the older players at the moment with sort of these say 18-year-old signings we're making. And I think there's a balance to be had. Of course, you do want to bring in these other big players as well because it improves the competitive nature of the squad, and if they're talented enough, then all for it. But a lot of the times we have seen it also not work the other way. So you can certainly get a move away from anyone really around Cobham at this point.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. I mean, the pathway at Liverpool is becoming a well-trodden one, really, it's fair to say, especially when you consider that. And I know the Carabao Cup was talked about in terms of sort of turning his head a little bit and making this move happen. But I do think it's a larger thing than that, personally. You can see a route to the first team potentially at Liverpool. Liverpool's strategy, Liverpool's policy in recent times has led to a lot of young players around the country, really, taking notice of what's going on at the AXA Training Centre, of course. You tweeted it's obviously a shame Chelsea have lost him, but Chelsea did try and keep him on their books, of course. And you go on to mention the fact that a move to Liverpool might actually be good for the player, which of course is first and foremost. I'm sure as a Chelsea fan you would have liked to have kept him, but the secondary thought after that is where's best for his development? I mean, do you see that being Liverpool then in that case?
Yeah, 100%. I think I was discussing before, sort of in the weeks before, where do I think if he was to leave, where would be his sort of his best move? And I have to say, Liverpool didn't come to mind. I was more thinking, okay, somewhere like Newcastle or Brighton, where he can be that main player, is really what could be best for him. And then when the Liverpool news sort of came out, I was like, this is a move which really does make sense. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans, well, I say a lot of you initially didn't take it the right way. And the way I was trying to say is like, oh, Liverpool's academy is inferior, blah, blah. Like, obviously he would have also been one of the best players at Chelsea. But what it means is when you are sort of the key standout player across two age groups, you get that push. You saw what happened with Ben Doak and the way he got pushed and with other players as well. And I think Rio's just looked at that and seen, okay, look, he's getting opportunities in pre-season. He's getting opportunities in Carabao Cup games. And they're going to get opportunities. And I think that's all a player looks for, because when they back themselves with the talent like Rio does, he's got this sort of fearless character. When given opportunities, he's going to try and take them. And I think that's all you can ask for. I think Chelsea have been pretty poor with that in recent years instead of giving opportunities. I mean, if you look at the Carabao Cup final, I think that's a really good example. And as you said, I completely agree with you. I don't think that was the thing which sort of changed Rio's mind or whatever, but it's more the overall picture. If you look at the final, you guys brought on some you're really talented youngsters, and they pretty much changed the game for you and won the final for you. Like, we had two on the bench. First of all, those two hadn't really been involved in pre-season. They were just two random names chucked on, albeit really good players, and could have helped us and would have helped us in the final if they were subbed on. But the fact is that we hadn't really seen any of that involvement throughout the season, so it would have made no sense to chuck them on in the final. Whereas if you look what Klopp did, includes them in pre-season, includes them in games before, and their sort of transition to come on at Wembley in a final becomes a bit easier. So I think that's definitely the sort of the thinking from their perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know a lot of us spoken about in terms of the monetary side of things, and we don't like talking about that full stop, let alone when it's a 15-year-old kid. But I think it actually transpires that it wasn't really a factor in it anyway. I don't think Liverpool did break their wage structure as was initially reported. I think it was very much in line with what they do anyway with players of that sort of age, scholars, actually. You mentioned Ben there. Ben's a very good example of this. Trey Nyoni's another one who's sort of been signed from another club in England. Of course, it was Leicester, actually, and he made his first team debut last season. So again, I come back to it, that route to the first team is very much there for Rio Ngumoha. So I imagine he is thinking along those sort of lines. I wanted to speak to you primarily about sort of the player we actually have on our hands now, really, because it's no surprise that myself, I watch a lot of Liverpool Academy for what it's worth. I've never seen this kid play in my life. Never seen him play in my life. Like, I've seen compilations of him, seen clips of him now, of course, but you've managed to catch quite a few of his games in and around Cobham previously, seen him play for the 18s as well. I mean, tell us what we are getting. Tell us why the academy coaching staff will relish the opportunity to work with him. And for me personally, I will be at the 18s games. It looks like he's destined for the under 18s. What should I be expecting as well?
Yeah, I think you're looking at someone who is just absolutely loves a 1v1. He's going to try and dribble past 3-4 players, but also, be able to pass it if he needs to and things like that. And I think, yeah, he just absolutely loves to dribble past players, to create chances. I know the Secret Scout a few years ago, you said he's one of the best 1v1 specialists in the country at the time. And these sort of things, they're really exciting to watch, especially in sort of this day and age of football. There's been a lot of talk in general, sort of, is that sort of part of the game dying? And I think Rio has this fearless sort of character. I think the next level for him is, can he translate what he's done at under 16s and under 15s to sort of the under 18s and under 21s if he gets opportunities? Because I think so far you've sort of seen glimpses of that in his couple of appearances he had for the under 18s level as a 15-year-old. But whereas if you saw him in the under 16s, he was much more direct. And I think that's just only going to come with sort of time and experience. So I think it's definitely to keep an eye out for dribbling. And he does love a goal and assist as well. I think he's one of the main players when he goes out on England sort of youth camp as well. And he almost always seems to pick up a goal or assist in games and stuff. So I think he's definitely a really exciting player. I think Liverpool fans will absolutely love him. And again, like I said before, it's just about giving him the right opportunities.